It started as a harmless audit, then the numbers twisted into patterns too deliberate to ignore. Each clue pointed to something larger, older, and far more dangerous than a simple financial scheme. Then, one tiny clue led to uncovering a connection no one was prepared for. This is the story of the ruthless alliance between the Albanian Mafia and one of the most notorious cartels globally, the Sinaloa Cartel. The first signs emerged from a simple financial review. Officials noticed unusual activity inside several gambling establishments. The numbers did not match the public records. Cash turnover moved in strange patterns. Small deposits appeared on distant accounts. Transfers left Mexico and resurfaced in Europe. These details pushed investigators to look deeper. The pressure grew when the Treasury Department released its findings. The announcement was clear. The United States had blocked a business empire connected to the Heise family. These companies stretched across Mexico, Canada, and Poland. They controlled casinos, restaurants, and energy firms. Investigators believed these businesses moved money for the Sinaloa Cartel. The cartel still held power in several regions. Its presence shaped the spaces where the Heise interests grew. Authorities acted quickly. The sanctions hit 6 members of the Heise family. They targeted Luftar, Arben, Ramirez, Fatos, and Fabian. They also named the Mexican associate, Gilberto Lopez. Every asset in the United States was frozen. Every citizen was banned from working with them. Inside Mexico, the reaction was immediate. 13 casinos had their accounts frozen. The government worked with Washington to track every movement. These actions were part of a wider effort against the cartel. Both countries shared intelligence. Both saw the same pattern inside the gambling industry. The casinos were not small operations. They stood in large cities. They drew steady crowds. They appeared normal. Yet according to investigators, they carried more than entertainment. FinCEN described a network that used shell companies and hidden transfers. The system allowed millions to move without notice. Payments flowed through machines, tables, and digital platforms. The process left few clear traces. The Midas Casino in Mazatlan became a central point. Senior executives there allegedly made monthly payments to cartel figures. Other casinos followed similar instructions. Places in Sonora, Sinaloa, Baja, California, and Tabasco all showed signs of the same behavior. These links built the case that later triggered the sanctions. The cartel dictated how deposits should be made, no more than 2 per day. The amount could not exceed 90,000 pesos. Deposits could not occur on consecutive days. These rules helped avoid detection by banks. The system pushed managers to obey strict routines. It reduced risk. It allowed the money to pass through without stopping. The raids revealed this structure. They exposed the agreements between casino managers and cartel leaders. They showed how withdrawal points were selected. Some payments were picked up in person at the Mazatlan site. The operation stayed small but steady. That steadiness made the system harder to trace. When the Treasury announced the sanctions, the story shifted from a quiet investigation to global attention. The details pointed to a deeper alliance. A link existed between an Albanian business group and one of the most powerful drug cartels in the world. This discovery marked the beginning of a larger story. It raised new questions about trust, loyalty, and profit within organized crime. The story of the Heise family begins far from Mexico. It begins in Albania. Luftar Heise described a life shaped by hardship. He said he left his country to escape a deep crisis. He wanted better chances for his family. His path took him to South Africa, then Peru, and finally to Mexico in 2004. Each move was a search for stability. Each step built his reputation as a businessman who wanted growth, not conflict. Luftar often spoke about his past. He said he had never been arrested. He said he had never faced prosecution. He framed his struggles as fights against unfair treatment. When reports linked him to the Sinaloa Cartel, he responded forcefully. In 2022, he released statements in several media outlets. He denied every claim. He said rivals attacked him. He said jealousy drove the accusations. He positioned himself as a victim of competition, not a participant in crime. His public image did not match the usual stereotype of a mafia leader. He wore clean suits. He moved quietly. He presented himself as an engineer and investor. He claimed that his main tools were his business skills and his persistence. These details shaped the way many people saw him. He did not appear threatening. He did not reflect common notions of criminal behavior. Behind him stood a larger family network. Arben, Ramirez, Vatos, and Fabian Heisa played different roles inside their companies. According to investigators, they helped run a group of enterprises that included casinos, restaurants, food processors, clothing stores, and energy companies. Together, these firms employed more than 1,500 people across Mexico. The size of this operation made the family appear successful. Their growth looked like the result of careful planning and long work hours. For years, nothing seemed unusual. The business expanded, the family traveled between countries. Luftar often moved between Mexico and Canada. They built new fronts and acquired new properties. The structure became larger each year. It was a business story that drew little attention. The United States began to focus on the Heisa network only after several financial patterns drew suspicion. Shell companies appeared in transfers. Large sums are shifted between continents. Some splinter firms emerged in Mexico, others surfaced in Poland and Canada. The depth of the network became visible only when investigators placed each piece together. The family rejected all claims. They pointed to their record. They cited the jobs they created. They emphasized their legal filings and tax statements. They said every permit was valid. They said every business followed the rules. These defenses continued even after the sanctions were announced. Their statements repeated the same message. They were not criminals. Still, investigators saw something different. They saw a system that matched the structure of Albanian criminal groups in Europe. They saw a family-based leadership. They saw efficient coordination. They saw movement across continents. These patterns stood out because they matched known models of organized crime. The Heisa operations did not prove guilt by themselves, yet they raised clear concerns. By the time sanctions arrived, the rise of the Heisa empire no longer looked simple. It became part of a larger question about identity. Was this a family fighting for success, or a family moving money for one of the world's most powerful cartels? That question remains central as the investigation continues. The Heisa business network did not appear overnight. It expanded step by step across several regions in Mexico. Casinos were its most visible assets. These properties appeared in major cities. They drew steady streams of customers. They offered games, music, food, and bright displays. To the public, they looked like entertainment hubs. To investigators, they later became central points in a suspected money laundering structure. Restaurants formed another part of the empire. Places like Cucina del Porto and El Latte de Cocina Se Bebe served local crowds. They created an image of refinement and success. Their design and menus are aimed at customers searching for comfort and style. These establishments helped the family blend into Mexico's business culture. They made the Heisas appear as normal entrepreneurs, committed to growth. Energy companies also stood in the group. Firms like H. Hydrocarburos managed fuel and related services. Clothing retailers added another layer. Food processors and logistics companies filled the remaining space. Each sector added new revenue streams. Each company helped spread the family's presence into new markets. This variety gave the empire a look of legitimacy and ambition. The scale was large. More than 1,500 employees worked for the Heisa companies. They staffed casinos, kitchens, transport units, and offices. Many had no idea that investigators were watching their workplaces. They saw stable jobs. They saw growth. They saw opportunities inside a business group that seemed to be expanding without pause. Yet the United States observed something different. OFAC identified at least 20 companies tied to the family. These firms stretched across Mexico, Canada, and Poland. The variety of operations fits the model of a group seeking multiple channels to move funds. Shell companies existed in Europe. Transfers moved across borders. The structure carried the signs of a complex financial design. Among the sanctioned firms were Bliri, Diversiones Los Mochis, Entretenimiento Via Mosa, LH Pro Gaming, Rosetta Gaming, and Heisa Holdings. These names appeared in public records. They often held licenses for gambling and entertainment. Their permits allowed them to run games, serve drinks, and host events. These activities created large cash flows. Large cash flows are difficult to trace. That difficulty made them useful to organized crime. The Procesadora de Alimentos HS company drew special attention. It operated the Ochuna restaurant inside Casino Midas. This same location was named in reports about suspected laundering. The link raised questions about how food, service, and gaming are combined inside the larger network. The empire reached beyond financial activity. It built influence. Licenses were approved, contracts were signed, buildings were renovated, new businesses launched. These steps showed confidence from local authorities. They suggested trust between regulators and the Heisa companies. That trust later became a major point of concern for investigators. To the public, the family appeared successful. Their story reflected migration, struggle, and eventual achievement. They described themselves as builders of jobs and opportunity. Their company shaped nightlife and dining in several Mexican cities. But beneath that success, investigators saw layers that did not align. The structure was too wide, the transfers were too complex, the partnerships were too quiet. The empire became the focus of a major international inquiry. It stood at the center of a case that linked Albania to the Sinaloa Cartel and revealed a network few expected to see. The investigation that targeted the Heisa family did not begin with a single event. It began with a pattern. Financial analysts saw transfers that did not match normal business activity. Cash moved from casinos into companies with no clear operations. Funds traveled from Mexico to the United States, Canada, and Europe. Some transfers circled back through shell firms. Each movement appeared small. Together, they formed a picture that raised serious concerns. FinCEN reviewed these patterns and shared its findings with the Treasury Department. The records showed repeated dealings between Heisa-linked companies and accounts suspected of cartel control. The data suggested a structure designed to hide money from narcotics trafficking. The system used casinos and restaurants as entry points. It used offshore firms as channels. It used bank deposits and manual withdrawals to cover the trail. OFAC acted once the case reached a clear threshold. Its statement is named the Heisa Organized Crime Group. It identified family members Luftar, Arbin, Ramirez, Fatos, and Fabian. It also named their associate Gilberto Lopez. These individuals were accused of using Mexico-based businesses to launder illicit funds. The statement declared that the group operated with the consent of the Sinaloa Cartel. This claim placed the investigation on a global stage. The sanctions froze all assets under United States jurisdiction. They barred American citizens from any transaction with the listed individuals or companies. This action cut the Heisa network from international banking routes. It prevented access to dollar-based operations. It pressured foreign banks to distance themselves from the empire. OFAC also detailed the role of a Europe-based entity. This firm allegedly helped Luftar and Arbin enrich themselves through illicit transfers. These movements showed how deeply the financial lines stretched. They showed that the network did not operate only in Mexico. It had roots in distant countries. It used international systems to hide large amounts of cartel money. The list of sanctioned companies was long. It included casinos like Rosetta Gaming and Diversiones Los Moches. It included food firms, logistics providers, and entertainment groups. Each company presented a part of the suspected system. Some processed cash from casino floors. Others moved funds through accounts linked to suppliers. Some acted as fronts for real estate deals. Together, they formed a chain that investigators believed served the Sinaloa Cartel. The Treasury findings also revisited past statements from Luftar Heisa. In 2022, he denied any link to the cartel. He said the accusations were attacks from rivals. He said competition in Mexico's casino industry was intense. He framed the claims as business disputes. These comments became part of the public debate after the sanctions were announced. They revealed a contrast between the family's public defense and the government's position. The sanctions did not close the case. They opened it further. Other agencies continued to analyze transfers. Mexico's finance ministry froze additional accounts. Investigators reviewed digital platforms that moved money without regulation. The inquiry expanded because the financial activity showed more connections than expected. This phase of the investigation confirmed one central point. The Heisa business empire did not operate in isolation. It is connected to a global criminal framework. That framework relied on trust, secrecy, and careful financial design. The sanctions exposed this framework to the public for the first time. They marked a turning point in a story that was only beginning to unfold. The heart of the investigation lay inside the casinos. These buildings stood in busy cities and quiet coastal towns. They offered games, music, and food. They welcomed tourists and local visitors. They looked like normal entertainment spaces, yet FinCEN found that several of them played a role in a concealed financial system. That system moved cartel money through controlled deposits and silent agreements. 10 gambling establishments appeared in the FinCEN report. They operated in Sonora, Sinaloa, Baja California, and Tabasco. The list included Midas, Emin, Mirage, Palermo, and Scamper casinos. Each location showed patterns of activity that did not match legal gaming operations. The movements were too structured, the sums were too steady, the deposits followed strict rules. The Midas casino in Mazatlan became the main example. Senior executives there allegedly made monthly payments to the Sinaloa Cartel. These payments created a steady financial channel. It allowed the cartel to move profits without drawing attention. Other casinos under the same executive supervision followed similar instructions. Places in Nogales, Culiacán, San Luis Rio Colorado, Ensenada, Rosarito, Guanmuchil, Los Mochis, and Villahermosa all appeared in the records. These links showed that the scheme extended across states, not just single cities. The cartel issued instructions on how to avoid detection. These guidelines were precise. No more than 2 deposits could be made into designated accounts. Each deposit had to remain under 90,000 pesos. Deposits could not be placed on consecutive days. These limits prevented banks from flagging the activity. Financial institutions monitor repeated deposits. They monitor sudden spikes. They monitor consecutive movement. The cartel knew this. They designed rules to avoid every alarm. Some payments were not deposited at all. A high-ranking official sometimes collected funds in person at the Midas casino. This method removed the digital trail. It allowed movement without a recorded transfer. These withdrawals, according to the report, were part of a broader effort to keep the flow hidden. Casino managers received further instructions through internal messages. They also received lists of bank accounts linked to companies across Mexico. Some firms held legitimate operations, others existed only on paper. More than 30 accounts appeared in a single set of instructions. Managers used these accounts to distribute deposits. This scattering method made detection harder. It spread sums too thinly for quick identification. Mexico's finance ministry later froze 13 casino accounts. This action showed that the problem reached beyond one family or one building. It showed that the scheme used multiple properties as nodes. The system depended on cash-based environments. Casinos handle large amounts of physical money. They deal with rapid customer transactions. They exchange chips, tokens, and bills. These features help the cartel blend illicit funds with legal flows. The FinCEN report also pointed to unregulated digital platforms. These tools allowed money to move through online systems with less oversight. Combined with cash deposits, they formed a dual-track method. One path relied on physical transactions, the other relied on digital movement. Together they created a fluid structure that made tracing difficult. The scheme was not complex on the surface, it relied on simple steps repeated over time. Its strength came from discipline and routine. Managers followed instructions, deposits stayed within limits, withdrawals happened quietly. Every action served the goal of hiding cartel proceeds inside normal casino operations. This system became a key part of the investigation. It revealed how the Sinaloa Cartel used business fronts to mask profit. It also showed how the Heise family's companies became part of a pattern that raised global attention. The casino scheme stood as one of the clearest moments in the case and shaped the next stage of the inquiry. Before we go deeper, make sure you subscribe to the channel. The deeper we get into this story, the more shocking it gets, and you don't want to miss out on all that. The link between the Heise family and the Sinaloa Cartel did not appear without context. Experts have been watching Albanian criminal groups for years. Their movements across Europe revealed a growing influence. Their control over ports and logistics made them valuable partners in global trafficking routes. When signs of their presence appeared in Mexico, security analysts recognized familiar patterns. Victor Sanchez, a scholar in public security, offered one of the clearest explanations. He said the connection between the Albanian network and the Sinaloa Cartel likely formed through Ismail Zambada. El Mayo held a long-standing influence. His branches managed routes, finances, and alliances. According to Sanchez, security sources believed that Albanian organizations became important buyers in Europe. They purchased large shipments, they helped transport them across borders. They brought profits back through complex laundering systems. These roles made them attractive partners for Mexican groups. The relationship offered mutual benefit. The cartel gained reliable buyers and access to European markets. The Albanian clans gained access to a steady supply and protection inside Mexican territory. This cooperation increased profit for both sides. It also made detection harder because each group used its own channels to hide movement. Albanian organizations usually operate through tight family structures. Decisions pass through relatives. Loyalty is reinforced by shared origins. This model matched the Heise case. The family controlled companies across several sectors. They moved between countries. They maintained a private profile. These traits aligned with what analysts had seen elsewhere in Europe. Sanchez described how Albanian groups gained strong positions in major ports. They held influence in Rotterdam, Antwerp, Hamburg, Valencia, and Algeciras. These cities serve as gateways for global shipping. Control over these spaces allows traffickers to move containers with less scrutiny. Albanian groups used this advantage to expand their reach. They became important actors in European distribution networks. Their profits did not remain in the shadows. According to Sanchez, they invested large sums into real estate. They bought apartments, offices, resorts, and commercial holdings. These projects helped clean illicit earnings. They also provided long-term financial stability. The same pattern appeared in Mexico. Regions controlled by the Sinaloa Cartel saw sudden tourism growth. Hotels, nightclubs, spas, and new restaurants emerged. These shifts mirrored the developments seen in European territories, where traffickers operated. This environment created fertile ground for partnership. The cartel needed international structures. The Albanian groups needed a steady product and local protection. Together, they created a chain that stretched across continents. The Heise family's business empire fit inside this larger model. Its casinos and food operations offered ideal fronts. Its connections abroad offered additional channels for financial movement. Sanchez emphasized that organized crime investing in casinos is not unusual. It occurs in many countries. The cash-based nature of gaming provides natural cover. Funds flow continuously. Monitoring becomes difficult. These factors made the casino sector an effective bridge between the cartel and the suspected Albanian network. The Mexican-Albanian connection revealed more than cooperation. It revealed a change in global trafficking. It showed that criminal groups no longer operated in isolated regions. Their alliances crossed oceans. Their methods are adapted to modern financial systems. The Heise case offered a rare look inside these alliances. It demonstrated how distant worlds connected through shared profit and shared protection. It also set the stage for the international response that followed. The reach of Albanian criminal groups did not begin in Mexico. It began in Europe's largest and busiest ports. These ports handled massive volumes of containers every day. They moved goods across continents. They also offered chances for traffickers to hide illegal shipments among legal cargo. Albanian groups learned these systems very well. They built influence in Rotterdam, Antwerp, Hamburg, Valencia, and Algeciras. Control of these cities gave them access to global routes. Their position inside these ports made them valuable actors in Europe's drug trade. They became important buyers. They managed distribution channels. They supported transport networks that reached far into the continent. These roles helped them build wealth. They expanded their reach through loyalty-based groups. Their operations grew around family ties and trusted partners. This structure reduced internal conflict and strengthened decision-making. With rising profits, these groups began investing in real estate. They constructed office buildings, apartment blocks, resorts, and commercial centers. These projects offered a clean surface for illicit funds. They blended illegal gains with legal income. They helped stabilize financial structures. They made it harder for investigators to trace origins. This pattern became widely recognized among European security agencies. The same model later appeared in Mexico. Regions linked to the Sinaloa Cartel experienced tourism growth. Hotels, nightclubs, and restaurants developed in areas long controlled by criminal groups. These changes raised questions about who financed the expansions. Analysts noted that these growth patterns closely resembled those seen in European territories where Albanian clans operated. The similarities suggested a deeper alignment between both worlds. The connection between European clans and the Sinaloa Cartel offered clear advantages. The cartel needed secure distribution channels in Europe. It needed reliable partners who understood port systems. Albanian groups already controlled these pathways. They could move shipments, they could manage logistics, they could distribute the product across the continent with less risk. In return, the Albanian organizations needed a steady supply. They needed a strong partner in Mexico. The Sinaloa Cartel provided that. The exchange created a stable cycle. The product moved one way, profits moved the other way. Each group supported the other's needs. The The Heisa family's businesses fit into this international system. Their companies stretched from Mexico to Canada to Poland. They held casinos, restaurants, food processors, and energy firms. These sectors handled cash. They handled large transactions. They offered places to move funds quietly. The structure matched known patterns of Albanian operations in Europe. It also matched the interests of a cartel seeking to expand its financial cover. This global reach explained why the case drew attention from multiple governments. It was not a local issue. It was an international network shaped by ports, casinos, family groups, and long-distance cooperation. The investigation exposed pieces of this system and revealed how far the influence of Albanian clans had grown. The crackdown in Mexico carried political consequences that reached far beyond the casino floors. One of the clearest examples came from Baja, California. Reports showed that Procesadora de Alimentos HS, a company linked to the Heisa network, received permits from local authorities to sell and serve alcohol inside the Ochuna restaurant at Casino Midas. This approval drew attention once the US sanctions were announced. It raised questions about how regulators handled licensing and oversight. The case grew more complex when Hilda Araceli Brown, the former mayor of Rosarito, entered the spotlight. She later became a federal lawmaker. OFAC accused her of collecting extortion payments for the Sinaloa Cartel during her time as mayor. She was also accused of helping the cartel hide its operations between 2021 and 2024. These allegations placed political pressure on local and national institutions. They suggested that criminal influence had reached deeper into public offices than many expected. The sanctions arrived just one day after Mexico's finance ministry froze bank accounts for 13 casinos. This coordinated action showed rare cooperation between the United States and Mexico. Both governments shared intelligence. Both tracked the same financial patterns. Their steps revealed a broader message. The investigation was not only about one family or one cartel. It was about a system that touched business, crime, and politics at the same time. For Mexico, the political fallout became a warning. It showed how organized crime could blend with legal businesses and public offices. It showed how permits, licenses, and local approvals could become tools for criminal expansion. The case forced authorities to review oversight structures and examine past decisions. It also placed greater scrutiny on regions where the cartel's presence had shaped local development. The combined actions of the United States and Mexico revealed how quickly a hidden network can collapse once its structure is exposed. The sanctions showed that financial pressure can reach places where law enforcement has little physical access. They also showed how international cooperation can shift the balance against groups that depend on quiet movement and private agreements. The crackdown also revealed a global reality. Criminal networks adapt to changes in policing. They move through legitimate industries. They use legal businesses to create distance between themselves and the funds they handle. They seek new regions when pressure grows. This case demonstrated that pattern clearly. Today, many questions still remain. Investigators continue to examine bank activity. They continue to review digital movement. They continue to look at businesses linked to the network. The alliance between the Albanian groups and the Sinaloa Cartel remains under study. The case stands as one of the clearest examples of modern organized crime's reach and complexity.